This might end up being the craziest trend of 2022. Jeremy at the Night Group, your favorite awesome realtor. How do I know this trend's happening? Well, I'm starting to get calls from buyers who are closing on homes, and I'm starting to see in the MLS this happening. So what am I talking about? I am talking about the new build flip. Okay, so what we're gonna do in this video is talk about what the new build flip is, go through the pros and cons of this, and if you are thinking about it, kind of some things to think about and to chew on. Oh, and if you were in the process of doing a new build flip, drop a comment below and talk about your experience. If you've done it, drop a comment below because we do want to hear from you in the comments. The new build flip is where you purchase a home and then put it back on the market right after you purchase it. Now, let me explain something to you. If you had tried to do this before 2019, you probably would have not made very much money, and you probably would have been in some issues where you were having to pay to get out of that situation. So what happens is when you build a home, it takes 8 to 10 months to build, right? And in that time, that home gains equity. And typically it would be 8 to 10%. And then you go to sell it, you got realtor fees, you got everything else, and you end up not making very much. And there's some other real big pitfalls here. Thanks to the pandemic and the craziness of 2020, here's what's happened. Buyers come in, they put a contract on a new build home. It was supposed to take 8 months. Now it's taking 15 months. By the time they go to close, they're running into some problems, and we'll talk about what those problems are. But the thing that's happening is we saw prices in 2020 go up 30, 40, 50% in some areas. So some of these new builds are worth a lot more money. So what's happening is buyers are now getting to the end of this and interest rates are going crazy. So they're saying, you know what, after all, I don't want to buy this home at 4% interest rate. It's not the same deal I was buying. Or they're saying, hey, my situation's changed. Or they just end up buying another home. And I have a really good example of what happened there because I've had that happen. So they end up buying another home instead. Or they just go, I'm going to make so much money on this, I'm just going to sell it. What's crazy about this whole thing is that I've made a lot of videos in the past talking about buying new build and how long you should actually hold new build. Because if you did purchase a new build, you weren't really going to make a whole lot if you sold it within the first year, within the second year. And part of that problem is because other new builds would still be building in that neighborhood, so you have competition. So even though the market rate in the area would go up 8 to 10%, because you have that competition with those builders, they can do lower prices, they can give more incentives. So as a seller, it's really hard to sell in that situation. Well, thanks to supply chain issues, builders issues, there's not a whole lot of new builds available. So when buyers turn sellers, now the builder is no longer that big of a competition in some neighborhoods. So if homes went up $250,000 in a neighborhood and you just close that home, well, you could make a good chunk of change. And so that's why a lot of these buyers turning sellers are contemplating selling their homes. And that's why they're reaching out to me a lot. So if you are going to be one of these buyers turn sellers and doing a new build flip, one thing that you really need to be aware of is your builder. Now, what we've noticed over the last year and a half is that builders are no longer selling to investors. So if this home becomes an investment or a flip, and the builder finds out about it, it's possible they could turn around and terminate that contract. I've made videos about builders terminating contracts, so that is a thing. Be aware, I'm not telling you to commit fraud. Please do not commit fraud. And in this video, I am not telling you at all, please, I'm not telling you at all to do this. I'm just giving you kind of the pros and cons of actually doing this. So don't take this as me telling you to do this. But again, if that builder finds out, it's possible they could pull that contract, turn around and resell it and make all that sweet, sweet money that you would have made, that builder is now going to make because, hey, prices have gone up, they could still flip and sell that house even more. So I've seen that happen. Now let's say the other thing happened where you ended up saying, this is taking forever, I'm going to buy another home and just turn this into an investment property. Well, the builder can do the same thing because they're not selling to investors. You bought a home, you're just going to make this an investment. Now they can just go, you know what, we're pulling the contract because we're not selling to investors. And look, don't commit mortgage fraud. Make sure you talk to your lenders and verify everything is on board. I talked to Sarah and Sarah had this to say.
If you purchase the home and life truly ends up happening where you get a job change, you have to move, there's a life event, you have to take care of a parent somewhere else, that's fine. That's honest. And if it's obvious and you can prove it, then there's no repercussions to that because life happens. But if you intentionally purchase a home as a primary residence and it's truly going to be an investment property, you're going to flip it, in a month or two, then that is truly mortgage fraud. And the repercussions could be up to $1 million in fines and up to 30 years in prison. And if your lender knew all this was happening and they told you it was fine, it was fine, it was okay, which they knew it wasn't, they have repercussions and they get in trouble too. And most likely they're probably going to get their license taken away, and they're also going to be on the hook for, fines and possible jail time as well.
So the scenario I had is a client purchased, was under contract. It was taking forever, delays. So we talked to both the builder's lender and their lender and said, hey, look, here's what we want to do. We want to make this an investment. They're going to buy this other home. And the builder and the builder's lender both said, sure, not a problem. And my outside lender also said, yeah, not a problem. Go ahead and do it. Well, they purchased the other home, moved in. They went to close on the new home a couple months later that they were turning into an investment. The builder had actually been shopping that. The builder's lender turned around and gave them a denial letter, and it became a whole big issue. They ended up having to come up and bring cash. Otherwise, they were going to turn around and sell it for 50 grand more at that point, which this is well before prices escalated to the point they did. So, and if you're going to do that, make sure the builder has it in writing that they will sell it to an investor. Make sure that the builder's lender says everything is on board and you're good, and your outside lender as well, and have contingencies in place for that. Okay, now here's the biggest downfall of doing a builder flip, right? Number one, from a tax standpoint, you need to own a home for 2 years in order to sell it and not have capital gains tax. And if you sell it within 1 year of purchasing it, you could see up to 37% capital gains tax on it. So that sweet 250 grand has just been dropped down to about $150,000 that you would have made. So keep that in mind. Plus, you're going to have realtor fees. Now, with that, you can actually write off those realtor fees, or deduct, as my CPA would say. So if you do decide to do this, make sure you reach out to your CPA and make sure you know what you're probably going to have to be spending. You know everything, if there's any loopholes, because you know what, there are a few loopholes. And I've had some CPAs tell me, now, if you're a CPA, drop in the comments below. I want to hear from you. And this is one of those videos that you better read the comments, because if there's a CPA writing something, they might not be a full CPA. So definitely reach out to your CPA, but there might be some really good comments in here. So drop comments below and definitely read them, because you don't want to have a situation where your realtor said, oh no, you're not going to have any capital gains tax, and then you're hit with capital gains tax. Now, here's the other crazy thing about capital gains tax. When you close that home, the title company is going to send off 1099 to the government saying, hey, this home closed. But they don't have to collect those funds. So let me tell you something. As a realtor, every quarter I have to send a check to the IRS because I'm a business owner. Well, you as a home buyer turned seller that sold that home need to hold on to that cash. Now, if you go take all that money and buy boats and do fun stuff with it and invest it, the IRS may come knocking at you in a year and ask you for that funds. And on top of that, you have to report it. So 2 things you don't want to do when doing a new construction flip is go to jail because of mortgage fraud, or go to jail because of taxes. So those are things that can happen. What do you think? Drop a comment below. Are you in this situation? Did this video help? Let me know in the comments. We'll catch you in the next video.